continue our discussion. Our issue of the week, when we're looking at freedom in South Africa, is whether we as South Africans are taking our freedom for granted. But when we speak of freedom, we cannot leave out the issue of economic freedom and how we can achieve that as a country. And Voter, do you think that as a country we're doing well in addressing issues of economic freedom?
No, we're not. But let's take a step back. We spoke about responsibility, and every South African has rights, and that we can thank the 27th of April 1994 for, and that's why we celebrate Freedom Day. But every right comes together with a responsibility. And I think there's no sense in people being unhappy with service delivery and a lack of service delivery and burning a KFC in Soweto and leaving people unemployed, and so doing destroying the economy there, or burning down a clinic which is there to provide services. But the minister referred to a lack of resources, and I disagree. We have a lot of resources to spend on cars for ministers, to spend on houses for ministers, to spend on Nkandla for the President's Palace, but we don't have resources to give to the people of South Africa. And that's why every citizen of South Africa needs to take responsibility, needs to reflect tomorrow, and then remember that reflection next year when they vote, to vote not historically. We don't want a better past, Minister, we want a better future. And every South African must vote for a better future of South Africa and for change. We are now fed up with hearing about the past. We want to hear about the future. We want a better future, and that is why we need to take responsibility, each South African.
But Mr. Chavan, very early on, but Minister Chavan, how would you respond to the statements made by Voter?
You see, I can't blame Voter. He doesn't know where we come from. He just hear about it. And this thing is almost like a picnic. It was not. Because if you say to us that we have to move to the future, whose future are you talking about? Because those who are telling us that, look, we are going in the wrong direction, themselves didn't want us to come where we are. They didn't want us to come where we are. We say, no, we're going to the north. They say, take the N1 but go to the south. And we can't allow that. Now, we are saying, irrespective of the challenges which we face, to build this country and to overcome the disparities which were created of over 300 years of oppression, over more than 50 years of apartheid. It's not a child's picnic. It's not a child's picnic. You were not allowed to go to a restaurant with a white person, let alone going to the toilet. You cannot use the same.
Voter, you're shaking your head.
And you can't say now.
Voter, you're shaking your head there.
You can't say now, because all were reserved for a minority of our society.
All right, Minister, let's keep it there. Let's get more of our views from our youth sitting out in our newsroom. Over to you, Faith.
And thank you very much for that, Ayanda. I'm listening to the passionate discussions that are being held in the studio. But of course, I am joined by young people from the various sectors in South Africa, speaking to us about their opinions about this economic emancipation. Let's start off with you, Doran. Doran Isaacs, of course, is from Equal Education. Talking about the notion of economic emancipation, where do we start?
Well, it's wrong for us to juxtapose the government must do it or the people must do it. People getting organized in their communities, holding government to account, is actually as much about highlighting the problems as about ensuring that government succeeds. We all want government to succeed because that's success for the country. But there's two things I want to recognize on Freedom Day today. That as activists, people like ourselves who every day are working in communities to ensure that problems get brought forward, we must recognize the fact that today we have the freedom to assemble and to organize. We have a media that is free to expose the issues with or without its own biases. And we have a legal system that protects our rights. And those are freedoms we have to recognize, we have to celebrate, and we also have to defend, just like we saw yesterday with the passing of the secrecy bill. The other thing is that when we talk about the massive problems that the country does face today, which are very real and are not just being highlighted by those who didn't want us to be here today, they're mainly being highlighted by poor people who are also celebrating freedom today, is that we can't just talk about government failure. there's a word that hasn't even been uttered in this debate, and that is inequality, which is the defining of South Africa today. And people like Vota, of course, want us to A, forget our history, and B, not talk about inequality and imagine that every problem is simply one that's been produced since 1994. But we live in a society that's profoundly unequal, and we actually need to begin by recognizing that and by basing our policies and our activism on that. And of course, education needs to be the great leveler, even though today it itself is so unequal that it's entrenching inequality.
I'd actually like to bring Elizabeth into this conversation. Darren quite rightly mentioned the notion of inequality, and you were mentioning youth unemployment, of course, which obviously then propels this inequality even further. What do we do?
Yeah, I think I'd like to start by acknowledging what was said earlier. I mean, we can't dismiss all the opinions of the youth.
Yes.
To say, okay, you guys don't know what happened in the past, so you guys cannot or evaluate where we are in South Africa right now. I think we really need to address those issues that are facing the youth. One of them, as you said, is unemployment.
Yes.
I mean, when you look at the World Economic Forum, this was a great issue of concern. This was public debate. When you look at South Africa, 71% of the people that are unemployed are the youth, 25 to 34. And I think the issue here is that we're not addressing those issues that are of concern to the future leaders of tomorrow.
I'm going to move this question on to Mhlanganisi. She's mentioning about how, as Elizabeth spoke now, we need to address. But I think that now, how do we do it? We need to address is one thing, but now practical, actual mechanisms and strategies to be put in place. Where do we start with that implementation strategy?
Firstly, thank you for having me. I think as a country, we were always so in such a hurry to move forward and look at how do we address when we actually haven't had the frank conversation. So what happens in South Africa is that there's a need to address inequality. There's a need to address unemployment. However, the difficult debate that needs to be had is that when you address things like inequality, when you address things like unemployment, for instance, there's going to be some sort of compromise that comes with that change in status quo in the first instance. I think that's the compromise that we're tiptoeing around as a country. But practically, firstly, I work with young people, or at least I sound like an old man now, but I work with I work with young people, and I'm part of a cohort of young people that organize. The question goes down, and the question goes back to how do we organize on a community level? Where do we organize ourselves as citizens? This morning, actually preparing to come here, I thought about an example, and I thought that most of the schools that were built pre-94 were built by members of the community themselves. So there was ownership taken within those schools themselves. Dr. James Moroka High School is still standing in Bloemfontein. It was before 1994 in itself. The question then that we need to ask in terms of practically is how do we contribute as a citizen? So when you look, for instance, at education, what is my role as a parent? What role am I playing as a parent to keep the school accountable? Firstly, how does the school keep itself accountable? How do parents keep the school accountable? How does the governing body keep the school accountable? But more importantly, how do we keep accountable the people that are supposed to serve us? The minister, for instance, the presidency, and the Department of Education.
We're going to be touching more on those issues. Zulupa, I want to bring you in here, mentioning the fact that we need to start becoming accountable. The measures to be followed by young people in doing so. Role modeling now comes into play there. How do you think that, especially as public figures, as a public figure, where does the issue of role modeling then come into play?
Role modeling is our parents. Role modeling is people who the youth look up to. I think that if we touch a bit on our at it very practically, I look at it as a car. Our government's a car, and our president is the driver of the car. He needs wheels, he needs petrol, he needs us as a community. We need to be that petrol, we need to be that oil, we need to be those that water that needs for the car to run. And one thing I think moving forward that we can actually do is understand what freedom is, since we are speaking of freedom. Freedom is an outcome. It's not the initial core of what we are speaking about. The initial core of what we're speaking about is self-realization. So if people start educating themselves on who they are and they understand who they are, we'll actually realize who we are, and from that will come liberation. We'll all be liberal people as a South Africa. From liberation, then we will find freedom.
Well, as you can hear, the theme here when it comes to young people is the issue of accountability and the notion of actually taking responsibility for actions to ensure that this country is a better country for all and that freedom really is realized and economic freedom is realized in our lifetime. Ayanda,